Greetings to all of you science fiction fans. I feel like I should do this because one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I saw it the first time in 1978, and this is before they introduced the scene of Roy Neary being inside the spacecraft at the end of the film. And of course, when they re-released it in 1980, they called it the Special Edition. But this video today is about one subject. The fact that Steven Spielberg, as the director, has always had an animosity about this movie. He said it in several different interviews over the years that's been released of DVDs about the movie. He said he was ashamed of it. He hated it. Because why? He showed a man who was married in a dysfunctional family environment where he would say, I would never show a man or a husband abandoning his wife and children in any film I make today. In other words, I'm not going to give you, the fan, all aspects or all options about a science fiction movie anymore. I'm going to give you so many facts, and then you're going to just accept it because that's what I'm giving you. And that's why he hates Close Encounters. Hate to tell you, Stephen, but I love Close Encounters for one reason. It is science fiction. And if you cannot be open-minded about every single human being and how they live their lives, then you're robbing your fans and you're stealing their money. Because it's not about you. It's not about Mr. Spielberg. It's about your fans. Your fans pay to see the movie you're making in the theaters. And if the fan cannot get what they came there to see, and that is a realistic storyline. And in the 1970s, men and women both were single parents. They were dysfunctional for one reason. Either the spouse died or they left. And that was a very, very real thing happening. Even in the 70s, people were getting divorced. Now, maybe Spielberg feels like, I wouldn't show that now because I don't want women to think that they were the cause and the effect of some children that have grown up and become bums or become murderers or whatever. Maybe he don't want to bring realism into his movies anymore. He wants to keep it totally fantasy. And that's why he has abandoned the idea that a husband or a wife could potentially be more interested in themselves than in their family if it's something that was as really, really personal as it was to Roy Neary. And Richard Dreyfuss, as an actor, I mean, he has never disappointed people in his acting. He has done it ever since he started on Jaws and even earlier. But with Close Encounters, this is a story about abduction. It's about a close encounter, which means you encountered the UFO, you went through all of these different things, and it does psychologically affect you. And by the time that Roy Neary left his family, he knew these creatures communicated to me, and I have to find out what they want. Whether or not it meant that his family was second best, or they had to leave, and I haven't got a problem with accepting that this man was going through a traumatic thing in his life at that moment that the film was being explained and described. And Roy Neary as a person, just because he's the husband does not mean he doesn't have his own life too. It isn't all about just his wife. And that's why I think Spielberg hates it, because in his mind he thinks only women can have personal lives. It cannot be about the husband having his own opinions or about his own life. It has to be about her. It has to be about the kids. That the husband, being the man, has to kind of like be an inanimate object in a family. That it has to be, it's about him being responsible for the family, period, and that anything he feels He doesn't matter to anybody else. And the Spielberg has done films since. And I'm going to tell you, I hate E.T. because it promotes the idea about him, Spielberg, being a father. During that time, he was having children, and that's who he was pushing it for, the yuppies. The yuppies were watching these films, and they just had to have something that just, it just related to them saying, we're having kids, great, but that's it. We're not going to take responsibility for them. They're going to be there. We're going to have them. They're going to grow up. They're going to do what they want. And that's reflected a lot in E.T. E.T. is not about a little alien. It's about those kids being whatever they want to be and not having any kind of a family unit there. As far as there was no father, it was just the mother. Now that's another thing. Why didn't Spielberg hate E.T. if it's the same thing? It's a single parent having to take care of children, and even though she didn't abandon the kids, it was still a dysfunctional family because you didn't have a father and a mother character in the movie. And that's what Spielberg said he hated about Close Encounters. Close Encounters didn't have the father figure the whole movie because he took off and he wanted to find out about the aliens. So in E.T., I say it was a cute movie, and that's about all, because you had Drew Barrymore, who was kind of like little Gertie, and she's the cute little girl of the 80s, and again, that yuppie mentality just comes through in the whole film. That it was about those kids being whatever they wanted to be, having no adult supervision as far as being taught anything. Henry Thomas, who was Elliot, I tell you, you never heard a child in Close Encounters curse, swear, use profanity, vulgar language. In E.T., they did all the time. That's a very good reference to what Spielberg was trying to do when he did E.T. He's saying, I'm abandoning all of this decency that was in the early to late 70s. Now that I'm in the 80s, I'm going to just let them do whatever they want to do and say whatever they want to. And that's why, in my interpretation of Spielberg as a director, he was great when he started, because he still understood that as a director, he's responsible for what he shows on that screen. In the 80s, it all changed. Now it was just about being cute and sweet and, yuppie-ish as far as how he projected himself in that movie as a director. But that as far as the children are concerned, or whoever's in it, didn't matter anymore what they were trying to say. It was like, this is what people want to hear from the yuppie generation, which is your kid is born and that's all we're going to take responsibility for anymore. And that this is about my movie. That's what Spielberg started saying in the 80s. It carried on into the 90s when he did Jurassic Park. He always kept saying when Jurassic Park came out, he said, this is my interpretation of what I'm trying to project in this film. As a director, you don't say to your fan base or to anybody who's paying for that ticket, this ain't about you. This is not the film being produced because of you going to see it. This is about me as a director. What do I want to say in this film? You're just the secondary issue because you're having to pay the ticket price to get in to see this film. And that's what Spielberg's been doing ever since. And I just have to tell everybody watching this video, Spielberg as a director started off knowing what he did, knowing his responsibility as a director, and later on, as he continued to advance himself as a director, it bombed because he began to see himself as the key element in the film and not about the fan base who were going to see these movies. And I say that's a tragedy because the fans are the ones paying the price on that ticket. And if they don't get what they come for, they're not going to come back again. And I have always detested Spielberg since I heard him say what he did about Close Encounters. when he did that first DVD release, he says, I would never do this film the way I did if I had the chance to do it over. He says, I never would show a dysfunctional husband in that scenario where he would leave his family to go and try to communicate or make contact with these aliens. And I still say again that Spielberg is totally wrong to say that when he directs a movie, it isn't about him. It is about those who come to see the movie. That means you stick with what you're trying to say about the story and not interject yourself into it, as he has done in years past or since, and saying, the film was not done the way I wanted because I didn't get a chance to be, the key player. I didn't get a chance to say, this is my opinion, this is what I'm doing. That's not what it's about. The director is supposed to project the story and then let the fans decide whether they thought it was right or wrong, whatever the storyline's about. And Spielberg has not done that since the 1990s, especially during the late to early 80s. E.T. was the first film where he kept trying to emphasize to his fan base, I'm a yuppie. I'm proud to be a yuppie. I'm going to project my movies from here on to project my own opinions, my own desires, my own everything. It's going to project itself in that movie. And every film he's done since has done that. Before this video ends, I don't know if YouTube is going to say it's copyright, but I'm going to share a song that I found, and I have never been able to find it until now. This is the song that Carrie Guffey played when he woke up that night when the aliens started manipulating all the toys in the room. There was a little record. It's called The Shape of a Square. And I have never been able to find this record, and I wanted to share it in this video before I end because I love this song, even though I've never been able to find it until now. And if Spielberg sees this video, hey, you know what? Get a life, get it back on track as a director, and say to the fan base, this is not about me. This is about you. This is about what you want to see as a fan, as an audience. This is not about me. And that is the greatest failure that I would say Spielberg has ever done. When he said every movie he's made has been about himself, and it hasn't been about you, me, or anybody else that goes to see his movies. Thank you.
I'm going to sing a song about a square, and I want you to look all around your room for one. But remember, a square has 4 straight sides, and each side is just as long as the other. And it has 4 corners that are the same size. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a square out there. Can you guess the square? Do you think that you can find it? You must be aware of the shape of a square if you really want to find it. So look with care for the shape of a square. Look all around. Can you find it? Okay, now let's look around for a square. Is the door shaped like a square? No, it's shaped like a rectangle. It has 2 long sides and 2 short sides. Now is the record shaped like a square? Nope, it's shaped like a circle. Now pick up the record cover. Run your fingers around the outside. 4 straight sides, each one just as long as the other. 4 corners, all the same size. Guess what? It's a square. Did you find it? There's a square out there. Can you get the square? Do you think that you can find it? You must be aware of the shape of a square if you really want to find it. So look with care for the shape of a square. Look all